I've spoken to hundreds of other parents that this has happened to. It's interesting that I think most people think there's a type of kid that this happens to. Not true. I can point out every kind of, the athlete, the football player, the super smart guy. And then my son actually fit the mold a little better. He was an artist, he was a musician, he had a film degree, but he did graduate from college, which usually things kind of go downhill before that. And he did get through college, got a film degree. As far as coping with the grief, it's all over the place. Everybody's a little different. I think men are a little different than women. Women tend to want to talk about it, men tend not to want to talk about it. They get stoic. But it's all over the place. But what we have found, because I've been a part of several different foundations, is that usually they're very gung-ho in the beginning. Let's get it out there. Let's talk to people. Let's figure out how to stop this, and they get bored pretty quick, or it gets too painful. I would say connecting with other parents. For me, that's been the best. And there are certain parents that really helped me, and they were moms. And then there was other parents that they just weren't good for me. And friends, I switched friends because there were some friends that just weren't good. They wanted to talk about that person that almost died, or like, don't talk to me about how tragic it was that someone almost died. It happened. So, those kind of things. So, and it took a long time before I could hear other people that I could be happy for other people's happiness. Find a support group. Yeah. Because going through it with people, and so me at my point in this time, being so far along, for me to meet someone someone's just died, I can't really help them. My son died over a 3-month period where 6 boys overdosed from his high school that all kind of knew each other. And so I had a built-in support group right there, and I was able to pick and choose, and I've got 2 that I'm still really close with. We still walk on a regular basis. And we don't really talk about the boys that much anymore, but I still find comfort in them and just knowing that I wasn't the only one. So he went off to college, and he was, I thought he was doing well. I didn't realize that he had done anything in high school, honestly. I assumed he had probably tried pot, but I had no idea that he had tried anything. Found out later that he had experimented with pills, opiates, and he had actually injected heroin before he left for college. But he was able to sort of control it, he thought. And so literally 4 years went by, and when we did find out that he was doing heroin or had done heroin, he still wasn't addicted. He was doing heroin. He called it a planned vacation. He obviously loved it, but he knew where it would go, and he knew that as long as he kept it far enough apart, he would be okay. And so when we found out he was doing heroin, we actually immediately had an intervention for him. And we had an appointment at Scripps McDonald Center, which was at that, now I think it's Sharp, but it was Scripps at the time. Went down there, and they said, well, we can't keep him. He's not addicted. And so, we were just incredulous. Like, you're kidding me. We know that he's did heroin a couple days ago, and you're not going to keep him? Fix him. What do we do here? And so we all went back. He went back to college. We had the long talk. Jerry, what are you thinking? You know where this is going to go. And he said, no, I know. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then I noticed on his, I had access to his bank account. I noticed that he was going to the ATM like several times a day, like a crazy person, you know. And I asked him what was going on, and he just kind of blew me off. But we found out later. So, long story short, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. He called us and said, I did it too close together. I did get addicted. I'm detoxing right now. I might need some help. So we ran up to meet him. He had gone into the emergency room at Cedars-Sinai up in LA. He was living in LA. And, you know, he was miserable, of course, and so much pain. Detoxing is super painful. And we, you know, we thought, oh, you know, once you go through this detox thing, of course you're going to realize this, you're not going to do this again. And he just kept doing it. I don't know. He ended up going to rehab 4 times. He came home and lived at home, back home again, but so he had to quit his job. He was a film editor. And I don't know, it was just amazing because I watched him personally detox probably 10 times. It's the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen. And, you know, at first he didn't want to go to rehab. He said, I can do this on my own. But then finally he did go, and he went the 4 times. And yeah, it's so incredibly, once you've done it. And you know, the one thing that I see people talk about how they were addicted to heroin and they got off of it and they're so glad they're, you know, not doing heroin. And I think that's hard for kids to see, because they're going to see this person that, you know, did it and tried it and then came back and now they're happy. I'm telling you, that road is a really rough one. Very few people make it to that other end. And you kind of can't try it. You just cannot try it the first time. I'm a huge proponent of do not give your kids Vicodin for when they're getting their wisdom teeth out, for any kind of, and they're really, now we know from this prescription drug task force, because we had pharmacists and doctors, dentists, it is not the best med. That was what the pharmaceutical companies were telling the doctors. They were literally training the doctors, going, this is the best one. It's not. It's not even the best one. I mean, it's just not even the one that works the best. You're way better off using an anti-inflammatory. But there are stories about kids or adults that tried Vicodin as a child. They never forgot that feeling and how much they liked it. And they go back when they're going through a tough time, a divorce or something, you know, a tragedy in their life, and they go back to opiates, and that's when, you know, it really starts rolling. But if you don't forget that you love that feeling the first time you try it, you're addicted. It's a psychological addiction, and it's actually harder to break a psychological addiction than it is a physical addiction. So the night before he died, I got a call from his sober living house, the guy that ran his sober living house, and he said, you know, Jerry was drinking. I just want you to know, we caught him drinking. We told him that you know, we're not going to kick you out. It wasn't, you know, a hard drug. We're gonna work with you, and we want you to meet us at a meeting tonight. And so, you know, and that was before the meeting. So I said, all right, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm going to let you guys deal with this. And so he did not show up for the meeting. So the next day and that night, I was, you know, trying to get a hold of him. And we, you know, checked his credit card records, his bank records. And the day before, super strange, he had gone in, he was a guitarist. He was pretty very musical actually. He had gone in and taken a guitar and traded it in for another one. And then he was supposed to go, so he was going through a day program down in La Jolla. So he would meet with like 3 different people each day. And so he was late showing up for that, but he did show up. And actually I did talk to him right before he went to that. And so it was that night that he quit. After he left those meetings, that's when I couldn't get a hold of him again. And the next morning, I was pretty sure he was dead because he had always at least answered us. He didn't just go dark. And my husband kept going, no, he went down to Mexico. He's on a bender. And so much time going by where we still hadn't heard from him, it was like it was probably a whole 24 hours. I was sitting in my dining room, and I saw the coroner's car drive up. And I saw the guy walking up, and I knew what he was going to tell me. It was just horrible. And the poor guy, he was, did not want to have to tell me what he had to tell me, but that's how we found out. And he had parked his car in a parking lot at Carl's Jr. And, he had his toothbrush there and a protein bar. And, but they found him, with the belt on and the syringe in his hand. So, I'm a crier, as you can tell. And I have 3 other sons. And I have 2 grandkids now. I have a very, very happy life. And you just have to kind of put what happened to Jerry aside. Jerry's dad actually just died in January. And it's those kind of things where everybody should be there. And he wasn't. And you just remember it. Jerry was a super funny guy. And my boys all attribute, because he was the oldest, they all attribute their sense of humor to his, very dry sense of humor. So we just try to remember the good things about Jerry.